Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Love, Life, and Energy. I'm your host, Michelle Chung. Today, I'm going to speak about how do you know if you're misaligned to something or just resisting something that you need to push through so that you can have a breakthrough, understanding the difference between the two. You're going to love this episode, so stick around. Welcome to Love, Life, and Energy. I'm Michelle Chung, and this podcast is your go-to sanctuary for personal growth, designed for busy, career-driven women who are ready to embrace their highest potential and not settle for an average, ordinary life. Let's grow and manifest your dream life together. Okay, so on my daily walks, I go for a walk. When I wake up, I fast before my breakfast, and I go for this walk. I usually get a lot of downloads when I'm either walking, cooking, gardening, doing all this amazing stuff when I've just got a clear head. And so I downloaded this kind of question that I thought I really wanted to share about this in the podcast today. And it was really about, do we confuse things that are good for our growth that we need to push through and get that breakthrough on? Or do we sometimes fight against things, trying to make it work, but they're actually misaligned to who we are and what we're meant to be doing? So I wanted to break this down a little bit because I think this is an important question, because oftentimes we try to push through and it's that masculine of just gotta keep going, gotta work at it and I'll get through it, as opposed to just knowing when you should be letting go of something because it's not aligned to who you are and what you're meant to be doing with your life. So sometimes we do confuse things that are hard for us. I like to say, I ban the word hard. I say it's challenging. So it's a way of actually overcoming this as a way forward. So we confuse things that are challenging for us, but they're good for us in terms of growth and the lesson that we're going to receive. So I always say we get what we want, or we get the lesson that we need, or is it a matter of just letting go of things that are misaligned with us, with our purpose, with our life, with who we are, that we shouldn't be doing anyway? Are we doing things because other people are expecting us to do it? That's what I mean by misaligned. It might be a relationship that you've had in the past where you're thinking, should I be sticking around? Should I be trying to make this work? Am I getting something out of this? Is he my soulmate? Should I be sticking around? This kind of thing, right? When you think that you've got to be there because you're going to learn from it somehow, or that you're supposed to be there. So if you're wondering, am I going to get some kind of learning or growth out of this? Or maybe it's sometimes that you're enabling some kind of behavior or his behavior in some kind of way. And this becomes a codependent relationship. So how can you know the difference between that which is misaligned and that which you need to be working through or getting that growth from? So when you're asking yourself, should you leave that relationship? Because maybe that relationship is misaligned. So there is no point trying to make it work. A really good example of this is when I was in my marriage, and actually it was amazing. There was no trouble. There was no fighting. It was actually a really good relationship. And the reason why I left that relationship was that it was misaligned with my values and my life. So a really good way to test that is to do your values. And I have a new training called the Core Attraction Method that's going to help you understand what are your values and your visions so that you can have that alignment from the beginning. So you have to ask yourself, do you have a common goal, a common life that you see together, that you feel is going to bring alignment with your life purpose, your soul purpose, that it is going to bring you towards that? Or is it a relationship where you just don't want to be alone? And you have to think about it from this point of view, that are you trying to do something because you want to move forward with your values and your vision? Or are you just trying to do something in order to avoid something worse, like being alone or loneliness or fear of or lack or scarcity? Right? So most of the time, if being with somebody so you aren't alone it's not for your highest good. So maybe this is an insecurity and fear of being alone, and that is the breakthrough that you need. So perhaps leaving that relationship is going to be more aligned with what you need as in terms of a lesson. Hopefully that makes sense. So when I left my marriage, because I realized that our values weren't aligned, I was someone who was, my highest values and my priorities were growth, spirituality, living my life to make an impact in the world and living a bigger life. And his values were more around security and safety and routine and being comfortable. So we were misaligned with our values, and that's not something that you can fix or you can work through. It will be simply a struggle where you're trying to bring somebody into your journey and they don't want to be there. So you feel like you're dragging them along. And that's where we ended up. So we realized that that wasn't going to work. I left my marriage because our values were not aligned, even though we had 8.5 years together. But I didn't know any of this when we were together. It was the right thing at the time. And I think in our evolution as humans, we are getting to this point where we're evolving in terms of alignment and walking our spiritual path and fulfilling our life purpose. I was in my 20s when we were in our relationship. I didn't know any of this. I don't think any of us knew any of this, right? It wasn't something that we were focusing on at that time. And I think when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's a very different scenario from when you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. You're in a very different state of your human growth and your spiritual growth. And sometimes when you're in your younger years, you don't know anything about your values. Maybe you've done it internally, but you don't speak of it. You align with someone more on hormones, someone who's attracting, who's the chemistry that you're matching, and those kind of relationships are probably more for procreation than anything else, right? We want to be with somebody who aligns with us in that way. When you're older and you're in your midlife, and I believe, and I see this a lot with my clients, is that you want to match with somebody who's aligned with your values, your vision, your lifestyle, and your long-term goals. These are all tangible things that need to be a priority in your relationship selection, and your soulmate will have those aligned with you. And that's the part where we don't need to be creating that massive checklist of this is how it has to be, this is what it needs to be in this kind of relationship. Because once you have, mainly what I teach in the core attraction method is those priorities are going to bring that alignment in your relationship from the very beginning, so it can actually become an effortless, committed relationship. So maybe if you're stuck in a situation longer than you want, take a look at what you're getting out of this. In therapy, in what I've studied as kinesiology, in Psych K, which I've also studied, we call this secondary benefits. The first benefit of your situation would be being in that relationship, having someone to rely on, love, commitment, all the usual amazing things that you have from being in a relationship, right? Having someone there for you. That's the first benefit of being in that relationship. Now, you could be stuck because you're getting a secondary benefit, a payoff. This is often invisible and unconscious for you. So you don't know that you're getting this payoff or this secondary benefit. But this is actually what keeps you stuck and keeps you in that misaligned relationship or situation. When your secondary benefit, it could be something like subconsciously, unconsciously, you want to avoid being alone. So you stay. You have maybe an insecurity, lack of self-esteem within yourself, maybe lack of self-esteem that you think that you could get someone better, or that you're settling for somebody. So you feel this is a lack of self-worth issue, right? That you could have a healthier relationship and you feel like there's no one else out there. So maybe you're just going to stay there. This is a secondary benefit that you may be aware of, but most of the time you're not aware of it. Misalignment is one of the most common reasons why relationships don't work out. If you think of the divorce rates that we have right now, they're at least over 50%. Maybe they've grown and increased. There's probably not even the same amount of marriages as before, because we're seeing that marriage is not as popular as it used to be. And people are in relationships factor, and they're not needing to have the sanctity of marriage or a particular contract to stay together. And most of the time, when we entered these marriages and relationships, we looked for partners based on common interests. And they meet at events or things like that. In the past, women have met, like in your mother's generation, let's say, we'd met our partners at university, at your career, something aligned to the work that you do. But if you're not aligned to the work that you do, then you're probably attracting the wrong people, and in that flow and effect, the wrong kind of partner. So can you see how lack of alignment within yourself and the career path or that you choose or the way you present yourself creates a lack of alignment with the kind of people that you're attracting? So that's why a lot of women come to me, not just seeking a partner, but also wanting to change a career as well. Because that lack of alignment, that lack of understanding what your values are and how they're aligned with your life path is really creating confusion and attracting the wrong people and opportunities into your life. So a lot of the time when you want to meet your soulmate has everything to do with you first being on your soul path journey, because he will also be on his path and growing and changing, and perhaps he's not ready to meet you yet, and maybe that's why you haven't met. And that alignment of your soul journeys being on your path will bring you together. This is what attraction is, because you're both vibrating at the same frequency within your life and attracting, and your paths will merge towards the same vision. That's why your values and vision is so important to create that effortless, committed kind of relationship that is, let's just say, right or aligned from the very beginning. You're not attracting men who don't want a commitment or who want to change you, or narcissists, or anyone who may be on a superficial level, because you've had that alignment within yourself. Those kind of men are not going to be attracted to you anymore because they cannot mold you into what they want you to be. They'll probably look for somebody who I call an unconscious survivor, a type 1 type of person. And instead, because you're a type 2, a conscious curious, you're actually moving towards and being curious about what is in store for you and in your soul path. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I talk about the 3 types of people in a previous episode if you want to go and listen to that. But basically, we want to be in that conscious curious phase, that type of person who's looking for inner growth, that feminine frequency, that journey internally to align with your purpose, your soul path, so that your soulmate will be on that path, and that's when you'll meet. Okay? This alignment matches on a much deeper level rather than just a superficial profile and dating apps. How can you even show what kind of person you are on such a brief dating profile like that? It's not, I wouldn't say it's not possible to meet your soulmate. I know people who have met their partners on apps and they have a family together and things like that. And that does happen. What I'm talking about is wanting to meet somebody on a soul level, and often people who are authentic aligned are not going to be on these dating apps. Okay. So if you want to bring in your soulmate, being authentically aligned to your soul purpose is the key. So the other scenario that you need to be in that committed, effortless relationship is to actually reflect back on those relationships that have ended. What did you learn about yourself from them? So remember I said you either get what you want or the lesson that you need. So you don't need to keep repeating the same kind of relationships over and over again to get the lesson. A shortcut would be to reflect back on those past relationships and get the gold from there. How did you change as a person? How did you understand yourself more fully? And a great coach is going to help you with that. And that's what I do with my one-on-one clients. Because what you resist persists. So what you can let go of is you can change the type of relationship you can have in the future. And that's the learning and the growth, that shift in creating a new future for yourself. If you want to know more about how to meet your ideal partner, I have an amazing masterclass that's going to teach you how to do that in those 3 steps that I teach in my program as well. I'll give you like a cool little presentation on that so you can understand how you can really do that without the dating, without doing the dating apps, without having to do that annoying and frustrating grind of having to get yourself out there. If you want to be more on your feminine frequency and understand how you can attract and manifest your partner without having to do the dating, you're going to love that training. You can register for free on the link below, on the show notes below. So make sure you go check it out. So I hope you've loved this episode and have some more clarity on understanding if you're actually aligned with your situation and if you need to get that breakthrough from that situation, or if it's misaligned and you just need to let go. Okay. Hope you've loved that. If you have any questions, make sure you connect and follow me on @MichelleChungCoach on Instagram. And it really helps if you leave a positive review for this podcast and share it with your friends. If you know an amazing woman who needs to hear this today, make sure you share it. It would help the podcast a lot and help empower women in the world. So I'll see you next time.